I live alone in an apartment in the suburbs of LA. I'm a 27-year-old web designer who's usually pretty busy with work and doesn't have much time for friends or relationships. This weekend was special because I could finally get some good rest. After getting off work on Friday evening, I decided to go to the nearby supermarket to grab some stuff, then just chill at home and enjoy some alone time. After buying food and drinks, I drove back to my apartment, brought everything inside, locked the doors and windows, and prepared to take a nice hot bath. Just as I had laid down in the tub ready to relax, the doorbell suddenly rang. I jumped because I was sure there was no one else in the entire apartment complex. I wrapped myself in a towel and carefully walked over to the intercom, asking who is it. There was no response, just another ding-dong as the doorbell rang again. I was a little scared, but still worked up the courage to walk to the door and look out the peephole. The hallway was completely empty and quiet. I shook my head, thinking maybe some kids were just playing pranks, so I didn't think much of it and went back to my bath. After my bath, I went to the living room to watch a horror movie. Not long after it started, the doorbell rang again, this time twice. I immediately stood up gripping my baseball bat and went to the door. Still no one outside the peephole. I carefully opened the door and looked around, but the hallway was truly empty. Now I was starting to get freaked out. Home alone and the doorbell rings for no reason? Too scary. I quickly locked the door and texted my friend about the creepy doorbell situation. He told me to stay alert and call the cops if anything seemed suspicious. To be safe, I decided to keep my baseball bat by my side from now on. I continued watching the horror movie, but was inexplicably feeling uneasy. I kept feeling like someone was lingering by the door, and hearing faint footsteps right outside. Gripping the bat tight, the doorbell rang again, this time, 3 rings. I jumped up with the bat and rushed to the door, swinging it wide open. But still, absolutely no one was there. This time I even went down to the end of the hallway to check the elevator, but didn't see a soul. I was terrified. I swiftly locked the door and called my friend and the cops. My friend told me to hide in the bedroom since it was the only room in the apartment with a lock. I did just that, and even propped a chair against the door. Just then, I heard rapid footsteps coming from the living room, accompanied by faint creepy whispers. I shuddered in fear, pushing against the bedroom door, scared that whoever it was would come in. The footsteps and whispers circled around the living room for a few minutes, then gradually faded away until they disappeared completely. I carefully opened the bedroom door. The living room was a mess, but empty. I noticed a few muddy footprints on the floor and some handprints on the walls. The cops arrived just then, but a thorough search revealed no intruder. I've been staying at my friend's place ever since. The whole thing left me traumatized, and I never want to stay in that apartment alone again. The origin of the doorbell still remains a mystery, but I'm guessing it was some malicious lunatic. It was absolutely the most terrifying experience of my life. Just thinking about it scares me to death. I'm a 28-year-old freelance writer who frequently travels alone to secluded small towns across the US in search of inspiration. Each time I arrive in a new place, I rent a house to stay in for a while. This winter, I stumbled upon an obscure small town in Nevada and rented an old wooden cabin. I reached the cabin on a dreary, snowy November night. Situated on the outskirts of town and nestled against a dense pine forest, I drove my car into the yard, grabbed an umbrella, and hurried inside. An immediate musty, dusty smell hit me. I switched on a flashlight to inspect each room. The living room was spacious yet untidy, with stained floors and walls. The bedroom housed only a queen-sized bed and a desk, with tattered sheets and curtains. The bathroom was dilapidated, covered in moss and reeking of mildew. By the fireplace in the living room, I found a box of matches and lit a fire, finally bringing some warmth and light to the place. Tossing my backpack onto the bed, I decided to rest for the night and properly clean up the next day. Just then, I heard creaking footsteps from the porch outside, as if someone was stepping on the old boards. Cautiously, I approached the window and peered out, but the porch stood empty, blanketed in falling snow. As it was late, I closed the bedroom door, lit the fireplace, and went to sleep. The following morning, I tidied up the cabin. It looked significantly better after the cleanup, feeling somewhat more intentionally arranged. I set off to town to purchase supplies and groceries. In the small town, there were few shops, and I had to drive over an hour before finding a relatively large supermarket. Upon my return and stowing away the items, I settled into the soft armchair by the fire and began reading the mystery novel I'd brought, ready to begin my writing retreat. The initial days were peaceful. I'd write during the day and read by the fireplace at night. However, peculiar incidents began occurring on the first weekend. That night, as I sat by the fire engrossed in my mystery novel, I suddenly felt a hand gently stroking my hair. Startled, I looked around frantically, yet found no one. I couldn't believe it was merely my imagination. Fear consumed me throughout the night. The subsequent night, I again felt someone touching my head. This time, I feigned sleep for a while before abruptly opening my eyes. I caught a glimpse of a dark figure swiftly vanishing from beside me, followed by hurried footsteps near the door. Terrified, I switched on all the lights to inspect every corner, but found no one. Subsequently, I was frequently awakened in the dead of night by eerie sounds, like someone pacing on the roof or peering in from outside the window. However, whenever I lit candles to investigate, nothing seemed awry. I grew anxious and unnerved, feeling an unnerving aura about this place. Then one evening, as I sat on the couch adding logs to the fireplace, I saw a blurry figure flash in the window across from me. I yelled out, and the figure disappeared. I scoured every room but found no signs of an intruder. Now convinced the place was haunted, I resolved to leave immediately. As I opened the front door to depart, I noticed a photo of my back on the porch steps. Trembling, I picked it up. It depicted a woman who resembled me, and the backdrop was the living room of this house. This completely shattered me. All the bizarre experiences had finally become overwhelming. I knew I had to get out right away, lest something terrible happen. Despite my weak and shaky legs, I summoned all my strength to rush to the car and speed off. I never want to stay alone in such a remote, isolated place ever again. Just recalling the strange events at that house still gives me chills. It was unquestionably the most terrifying experience of my life. I'm a 34-year-old single woman who has been renting a one-bedroom apartment in an old building in downtown Chicago for 5 years. I work long hours and spend most of my free time at home alone, barely making any friends. I don't mind though, I'm used to being alone. It's just that the building is so eerie, with its gray peeling walls hiding who knows how many secrets, and strange noises echoing in the deep of the night. Just last month, I encountered another bizarre experience. It was late on a Friday night. I had just gotten home from work exhausted, changed into pajamas, and was about to go to bed. Just then, I suddenly heard a man's low mumbling voice right outside my door, as if it was whispering in my ear. At first I thought it was just a drunk neighbor stumbling by mistake, but listening closely, the voice was right in front of my door, extremely near. At first I didn't think much of it, assuming he would leave soon. But after a while, the mumbling continued, with indiscernible fragmented sentences. Now I started feeling creeped out. A chill went down my spine. I carefully walked to the door and put my ear against it. I was certain that just on the other side, a man was talking to himself. While I stood here unable to make out a single word, I could only feel the vibration of the murmurs through the door, traveling into my ears, making me shudder. I took a quick peek through the peephole. The hallway was completely empty, without a shadow. I was totally confused, quickly double-locked the door, ignored the creepy sounds, and went straight to bed. I tossed and turned the whole night, wide awake, afraid that the owner of the voice would reappear. The next morning before work, I cautiously opened the door and thoroughly checked the hallway, but found no suspicious traces of anyone. An unsettling feeling came over me. I couldn't believe this was just my imagination. This eerie old building must be hiding some kind of secret. Over the next few nights, the mumbling appeared on and off, sometimes by the door, sometimes outside the window, the content unclear. Each time I worked up the courage to check, there would be nobody in sight. This left me both frightened and puzzled. I knew someone was definitely following me, monitoring my every move. Every time late at night, I would startle awake, feeling like someone was watching me. I became afraid of being alone in this apartment, fearing the owner of the voice would suddenly show up at some point. By Sunday night, I had finally had enough. The mumbling occurred again. This time I worked up my courage and swung the door open, trying to find the stalker. The instant I opened the door, my neighbor's door across the hall opened just a crack, then shut with a bang. Now I was really freaked out. This person lived right across from me. He had been watching my every living moment. I told the landlord about this, but she said the security cameras didn't capture any suspicious individuals. Unsure what to do, I went to stay with a friend for some time. After a few weeks, I tentatively spent one night back at my apartment, but the bone-chilling mumbling still returned. I terminated my lease and fled to another place. I still cannot figure out what on earth happened. What secret is this building hiding? Who is the owner of the voice? Why did he have to follow me like a shadow? Just thinking about it frightens me to the point my heart races. This was absolutely the most terrifying experience of my life. I swear I'll never step foot in this kind of eerie old building ever again. I hope whoever moves in after me can avoid such misfortune.